Hello everyone, this is Schism here. Got a 2,500 point battle report. My vampire counts versus some dark elves. Starting off with my opponent's far right, he has 5 warlocks. He has 6 shades. On top of that pyramid thing there is a Reaper bolt thrower. To the left of that is a Charybdis. In his center lines, he has 30 Blackguard Corsairs, and that tucked away in the right-hand corner of that unit, there's a BSB with heavy armor, sea dragon cloak, shield, and a sword of battle. To the left of that, there is 6 Cold One Knights. Behind that, he has his general, a master on a Pegasus with Sword of Might, Luckstone, Heavy Armor, Shield, and Sea Dragon Cloak. He is flanked by 2 Bolt Throwers. To the left of that Bolt Thrower, there is a level 4 on a Pegasus with a Dispel Scroll and Talisman of Preservation. For spells, he rolled up Doombolt, Word of Pain, Black Horror, and Blade Wind. In front of that unit, there is 24 Blackguard. Rounding out his forces on his far left here, he has 20 crossbowmen with the flaming banner, and on the far left there's 5 dark riders. Starting off all the way on my left flank, I have 1 spirit host. Then I have 6 cryptoras facing outward to block my rear. To the right of that, there is 40 ghouls. In front of that is another spirit host. To the right of that, there is 20 Graveguard with a full command, and in there, my Vampire, my General, Enchanted Shield, Talisman of Preservation, Red Fury, Quick Blood, and Ogre Blade. So Strength 6 would always strike first, and Red Fury is always pretty nasty. In front of that unit is a 3rd Spirit Host, and behind that unit, there is 20 zombies, and in there is a level 4 with nothing. For spells, I rolled up Invocation, Raise Dead, Curse of the Years, and Van Hell's Dance Macabre, and that's probably my favorite spell set. You know, Invocation is always nice to have to raise somebody back. Raise Dead is always nice to raise chaff units and gum a unit up, and plus you can also add to that unit with Invocation. Curse of the Years is an amazing spell, one of my favorites in the list. Just basically because it can do some small amount of casualties, but more importantly, it soaks up the enemy's power dice during their magic phase, so I don't have to worry about their magic phase as much. And if they choose to let it go, well, then it just gets more and more potent every magic phase, and it will decimate a unit. So it's kind of an auto. They're gonna have to throw power dice to dispel it. And Van Hell's Dance, who doesn't like rerolls, especially with poison and/or killing blow? It's more chances for poison and more chances for killing blow on the tail end of that. And the free movement is nice. On the other side of that unit, there is a level 1 with a Dispel Scroll, and he also knows Invocation of Nihek. And my level 1 Vampire General also knows Invocation of Nihek, so I can always try and spam to get some more bodies back if the battle gets quite arduous. True that unit is 40 Graveguard with the Banner of the Barrows and a full command. And rounding up my forces on my far right, there is 33 skeletons. Dark Elves get turn 1, and his warlocks move up like so, his shades move up like so, and his center line kind of scurries forward a little bit. His level 4 gets in range to cast some magic missiles. Since Doombolt's an 18-inch range, he has to get kind of close there. And his archers move up, and his Blackguard does the same. And you can see his fast cav start swinging around the forest here to try and get behind me. In the magic phase, he does get off a Doombolt, and he clears out the Spirit Host in the center here. And then Scattered Shooting takes out 2 of the skeletons and 4 of the Graveguard with great weapons. Now, my turn 1, I make kind of a mistake here, and I make also kind of an important play for me, is I reform the skeleton unit to go wide to block up the impassable terrain there and to block up the table edge, so now he can't get by me with the shades, nor can he get by me with a fast cav. I don't want this fast cav to get behind me, the warlocks here, because if they do crash into my zombie bunker, odds are they will probably be able to pick off at least 1 wizard and get the unit stuck in combat for probably the rest of the game. So I take my skeletons and I reform like so he can't get by me. But I did get a little overzealous with my reform here, and as you can see, I actually put my skeletons so they can't actually move forward at all because they would be going into impassable terrain. So the rest of my turn, when I take my Spirit Host on the far left there, and I move him up behind the rock there. Now, we treated that rocky crag there as impassable terrain, so no one on the other side there can charge him. So he's pretty much got a free reign to charge anything that pokes its head out. And then the rest of my forces moved up like so, just a full march to engage his forces. Now, what's cool about that rocky crag there is it does actually separate the blackguard from getting into the center. So those units in the center there will be safe from the blackguard until the blackguard makes a trudge all the way around that impassable terrain. My Cryptars move up to face off against the flaming crossbowmen, and my Spirit Host moves back to just kind of to pay attention to these Dark Riders. I just really don't want them getting in my backfield. In the max phase, I do manage to get Curse of Years off on his Corsairs here, and he rolls pretty deplorable. And granted, he needs 6s for them to die. He happens out of 30, he rolls 11 6s. And yeah, that's pretty disgusting. And my turn 1, I do a 6-inch bubble invocation, and I also do a raise dead within 6 inches of my caster. So I raise 10 zombies, and then I add 13 with the invocation, and I add 7 more to the bunker, and my Graveguard with Great Weapon unit goes up to full strength. Dark Elves turn 2 is Warlocks move around to get in range to probably do a Doom Bolt here, and since they can't get by the skeletons, they turn their aggressions towards the center. The Shades move up to take some shots at the skeletons. His center lines don't move too much. He may have shimmied up a few inches, but it was nothing of note. And his Pegasus Sorcerer just turns to do another Doom Bolt at the Spirit Host. His Dark Riders make their way around the forest, and his Blackguard move up to try and get around that impassable terrain and threaten the center of the board. He goes ahead and throws his dice and gets rid of the Curse of the Years. He takes 3 wounds off my skeletons, and then the rest of his shooting opens up and kills 2 more Graveguard with Great Weapons and 1 Graveguard with Hand Weapon and Shield. And his Flaming Crossbowmen unload their 40 shots and take out a whole entire Cryptora. My turn 2, I pay attention to what I'm doing here now, actually, and I reform the skeleton, so I will be able to fit through this gap. So I'll at least be able to march, or not march, but move forward. And I take my Graveguard with Great Weapons and I charge his Warlocks. He opts to flee, so I opt to redirect into his Black Corsairs, and I fail the charge. So I end up like so, and I move my Graveguard with Great Weapons up just to match the speed of the Graveguard with a Hand Weapon Shield to match the speed of the failed charge of the Graveguard with the Great Weapons. I take my Spirit Host and I charge his Cold Ones. He'll only have a banner here, so if I do no wounds, I'll only take 1 wound a turn, which should be able to tie up those dinosaur riding Dark Elves, the Cold One Riders. So it will give me a chance to aid and get the charge off on them, so I don't have to endure their charge. And I move up my zombie bunker up like so, and my other zombie unit I just turn to face this way, just to protect my rear, so nothing silly happens. Now, seeing how this shaped up with the impassable terrain in the middle there, I realized it didn't have any room to really for the ghouls to go, so they reform just to face off against the Blackguard if they make it around the rocky crag. And my Spirit Host moves back even more so. And the magic phase, I roll double 6s, which is pretty awesome for Undead. So I cast the 12-inch Bubble Dance, so rerolls for all these units you can see here, and a free move. So I take my Graveguard and Grave Weapons and give him no choice but to go into me. I just go right into his face with them. So I know I'll take the Charybdis and the Black Hawk Corsairs, but I don't expect to take too much damage, and in return, I hope to unleash hell on him. I take my General's unit and I move it up so I can get a charge off if the Spirit Host will and happens to hold. And he also has to move his Sorceress, because otherwise I would love to charge that. Then I get off a 12-inch Bubble Invocation, and I raise my Cryptoras back up to full strength. I add my 1 Graveguard with Hand Weapon Shield back, and my 2 Great Weapon ones back. I add 7 zombies to this bunker, and 13 more to the one I raised up. In the combat here, it goes as expected. I don't do any wounds, and I just crumble 1. And Dark Elves turn 3. He takes his Corsairs and Charybdis and plows into my Graveguard with Great Weapons, because he doesn't really have a choice at this option. He rallies his Warlocks, and his Shades move up in the middle. His Sorceress gets the hell out of dodge and flies all the way to the corner over here in hopes of shooting off this other Spirit Host, and his Fast Cav moves up like so. In the magic phase, he does get off the Doom Bolt, and he hopes to kill it, but he unfortunately doesn't roll high enough and only does 3 wounds, so the Spirit Host is still alive. The crossbowmen open up again to the Cryptors. They do 2 wounds to them. And more shooting, it does 1 wound to the Graveguard with hand weapon shield, and 2 of the zombies get plinked off by the shades. In the combat here, no wounds were done with the cold ones, so I just crumble 1 more, but that's okay because I get the charge next turn. And in this massive combat here, I allocate the whole everyone who can attack on the Charybdis does, just so I don't have to suffer a Thunderstomp. So I take out the Charybdis, I killing blow his BSB in the unit, and then I do 6 wounds to the rest of the unit. He does 13 wounds in return, but in the combat he does manage to stick. My turn 3, I move my skeletons up. They're out of range for marching, so they just move up 4 inches. My general and his unit move into the Cold One Knights. And my Spirit Host charges the fast cav here because there's really no other option. He's going to be able to get around me next turn no matter what. And I don't want to try and endure any other Doom Bolts or anything like that. So I take my chances on the Dark Riders here. I reform my giant zombie bus. I rose just to face the shades, and I move up my other zombie bunker up in the center just to, in case I get any spells off, to do some area buffs. So in the magic phase, I get off a 6-inch invocation from the heck. I raise back up my Graveguard with hand weapon and 2 of my Graveguard with great weapons back. In the combat here, I do 2 wounds to his Dark Riders here, which is most unexpected. He does no wounds to me. I win the combat by a charge and 2 wounds. He flees through the woods, loses 1 more of his number, and I fail to catch him, but I end up right there. My general slid over here to do some attacking, and he kills 5 of the Cold One Riders by himself, and no one else did any damage. He flees, and I catch him with my Spirit Hose, and I get into his Pegmaster on a Pegmaster on a Pegasus, and I opt just to reform with my Vampire Lord and his unit. In the combat on the right, my Graveguard great weapons just go and slaughter all of his Black Ark Corsairs, and I reform my General's unit to face the center here. And right here, this is my opponent decides to call the game. Quick and easy. Pretty much all he has left in his army is his Pegmaster and his Blackguard and some crossbowmen, but my entire army is still intact, and I'm going to regenerate any wounds I have lost on my Graveguard with great weapons, and his Blackguard is facing down a horde of ghouls, and then my Vampire unit and the Cryptors. And it's just a pretty ugly scene here all around. So some notes. Guarding the rear. I mean, when you're running a Vampire Council list, I love the magic. I love the spell sets. I love everything about it. But, you know, if you're going to take a Blender Lord, that doesn't leave room for a level 4 with any equipment. So you kind of have to baby him. And making sure nobody gets in your flanks is kind of key, because if he gets any unit whatsoever into your level 4's unit, I mean, the zombies just aren't going to win any combats. So this game, it was very important for me to get with all the fast-moving Dark Elf units to guard my rear, and that's what the Cryptors and that skeleton unit on the far right did. And that's all they needed to do to secure that the rest of my army did what they needed to do. Shooting against a Vampire Council army, unless you're doing some sort of mass damage with a volley gun or a dwarf, what do I call organ gun, or stone thrower shootings. Any sort of ballistic stick shooting really doesn't do too much, because you can just raise them back with invocations. It was quite frustrating for my opponent to deal with this, because he was picking off 2, 3, 4 wounds a turn, and I just raised them all back. After I got the first Curse of the Years off, he tried to stop that every turn, because then I tried to cast it on his Blackguard every magic phase, the first spell I did. So that really drew up most of his dispel dice, which let myself to reign free with the invocations, and it really showed through in this battle. Dance Magic Dance. Dance Macabre is an awesome spell, not just for the movement, but getting rerolls, especially with an army like this when most of my army has poison attacks or killing blow. The chance to get those extra benefits just get exponentially multiplied. So I love that spell. And the same thing with invocation spam. It can be, with a level 4, it can be quite daunting for an enemy to deal with it. And then once again, Curse of the Years. I love this spell. It's always the first spell I cast. If there's one unit with a lot of bodies in it, I always cast this first. Not so much to do the damage, just the fact that it sucks out their power dice during the next magic phase, so that's less I have to worry about. Because Undead aren't that great in combat with initiative and weapon skill as it is. I would hate to have any debuffs or anything like that to go off on them to make it even harder for me to hit. So yeah, victories for the vampire counts, short and sweet, but there it is. Thank you very much.